and effectiveness on the job. So Linda is here today to teach you how to add structure to your hiring processes, how to make decisions faster when hiring, how to have efficiency and effectiveness in your recruitment process, and then how to deliver higher quality candidates to your organizations and to your clients. So we've set up this webinar to help you address the challenges you currently face and the challenges you'll face in future in your hiring process. We'll let you know what has changed. We'll let you know what you need to do to become better at hiring. So Linda will share valuable information on how your hiring process would be better and you close roles faster, because we feel lots of questions coming in that area. Get your questions ready. Feel free to type them in the chat box so that when she's ready, all the questions will be answered. So let me briefly introduce Linda. Linda is the managing partner and co-founder of Maurice Xandra Solutions. It's an HR consulting firm that helps clients such as General Electric in the healthcare sector, Nestor African Capital Insurance, ACA, Adax Petroleum, Transcorp Group, Energy Quest, Genesis Group, Obasanjo Farms, Elizabeth, and others, to mention a few. So she's a certified HR professional. She's a leader with Maurice Xandra Solutions, and Linda has an MBA from the Manchester Business School. She also has a BA from Anambra State University, and guess what? She finished with first class. So who else can better take us to whatever it is we need to learn, whether in recruitment? I'm sure she'll even give us all that we need to be better. So she has taken some courses in Harvard Business School and Chartered Institute of Personnel Management in the UK, development at CIPD in the UK. She's also a certified HR professional by HRCI and by CIPM. So Linda is passionate about solving real life issues and helping the youth discover their purpose. She's a gold mentor on Manchester Spring Mentoring, and she's part of the external faculty of Poise Nigeria. Everybody, please welcome Linda Uneze. Linda, welcome and thank you for agreeing to join us today. You have the floor.
That's a huge profile. That's a huge profile. Oh.
I had to shorten it because if I go on, we won't finish in 10 minutes.
I know, right? I know, right? You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Felicia. And thank you, Paul, for that wonderful introduction. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. Mic check, just to be sure that you can all hear me. Maybe just drop in the chat box. Yes, that you can hear me. Awesome for that confirmation. So just like Felicia and Paul mentioned, we had Wendy yesterday who spoke on the hiring process, but more from the talent's perspective. And then today we'll be looking at the same process, but more from the external recruiter's perspective. So at this moment, I would just share my screen and we can continue the conversation. So if you can see my screen, probably, Felicia, can I please hear your voice?
I can see your screen. It's clear.
I can too.
Awesome. Yes, I see. Thank you for me. Yes, thank you for me. Okay, so amazing. We'll be talking about the hiring process with the intention to educate, enlighten, clarify, and I'm also here to learn as well. This will be an interactive conversation, right? So before we delve into today's topic, I would like to acknowledge that most of the slides have their originality in various HR and management books. And then we also had other materials from the internet, and some of the experiences being shared would be from personal experience. And I just wanted everyone to know that, this is me acknowledging my debt of gratitude. So moving on, I would like us to talk about some popular beliefs. When I'm engaging people, external recruiters, internal recruiters, even some talent, there are certain things that I hear quite often. And the first one is that the recruiter concludes the exercise. So when I say exercise, I mean the hiring exercise. So let's just, let's get your views on this. Let's ask some questions. For the recruiters in the house, the external recruiters, Have you ever had a process discontinued? By process, I'm referring to the hiring process. Can I just see a yes or no in the chat box? You've initiated, you have interviewed, you've presented the talent, and the process was discontinued, probably because of restructuring or something else. Can I just see responses? Oh, Fumi says many times. I'm with you on that. Okay, so yes from Eno. Oh, okay, so I'm seeing some yeses. I'm seeing from Rufus as well. Now let's move on to the client side. And by client, I mean internal recruiters and employers. You know, on your own part, regardless of the reason, have you ever discontinued the hiring process for the internal recruiters in the house and the employers? Okay. Oh, yeah, so you're usually notified that the role is on hold or has been canceled. Absolutely. So there's something that I want us to all recognize. We'll come back to this when we're going through the slide, but there's something I want us all to recognize, and that is this. The client initiates the process, the recruiter executes, but the client concludes. As an external recruiter, we cannot give a talent a job offer. Even when we have been given that responsibility to do so, it has to be approved and it has to come from the client. So moving on to the second popular belief, and this is quite common amongst us recruiters, and that's that as an external recruiter, you need to insist on best practice. That's correct. So sometimes we hear things like, well, personally, I have heard a client say, I want somebody who is, or I have seen, you may not have heard, but you may have seen, right? You want someone who is light-skinned, someone who made a first class, someone who has British accent, foreign degree, lives on the island, somebody who is mobile. And then, you know, when you're hearing all of this requirement as a recruiter, this is my facial expression, huh? What does somebody what does someone who is light-skinned, I mean, how does that affect the competence that is necessary for the role, right? So in this case, we begin to think, is this because, are you trying to be inclusive as an employer? So is this diversity or bias, right? So when you say, sometimes you have a client that could come to you and say, you know, my team or a particular department is male dominated. So we want to infuse, we want for gender balance, we want to bring more, you know, the female gender. That is inclusion, right? You're trying to diversify the team. That's understandable. But there are certain things you request for that has nothing to do with, you know, the productivity that is expected of the talent on the job. Then it begins to sound more like bias. So you need to decide as a recruiter if what you're hearing is, you know, the need to be inclusive or is more from a position of bias. Yes, as a recruiter, we are there to advise. We cannot impose, right? It is our responsibility to explain the implication and impact of being inclusive to the client. It is also our responsibility to explain the likely negative impact of, you know, setting bias, you know, on the organization's brand and also on the hiring process and even on the culture. Yes, it is our responsibility, but you cannot impose, right? So when the client tells you, this is what I want, it is now left for you after you have tried all you can to explain, it is now left for you to decide if you want to proceed or maybe not. But that is up to you as the recruiter. So the third belief is, I hear a lot of recruiters say, you know, the talent, you know, when you employ a talent for a client, the talent, you know, should be loyal to us. You know, you're employing a general manager or an MD, maybe an executive hunt, an MD for a client, right? And the expectation is that the talent You know, when they require, when there's talent need within the organization, they should reach out to you because they feel loyal to you. No, no, no. No, the job was paid for by the client. So if you want loyalty from the talent, that should start in the hiring process, right? The way the talent is treated. How did the talent experience? How was the experience of the talent? What are the things that you did differently to make the talent feel valued and appreciated throughout the process, right? We should begin to look at recruitment as some form of marketing, right? And begin to see talents as your potential partners. Now, when you begin to view the talents this way, there will be a mind shift in the way you relate with the talent, not just the client, in the way you react with the talent. You know, this mind shift would help you in the hiring process, right? I would always say that talents are potential brand ambassadors, right? They would help even sell your business in the new organization they have just joined. And the way you manage certain relationships when it comes to trying to maybe win business for the company, it's the same way you manage the relationship with the client, because there's a potential for that relationship to grow beyond the talent recruiter relationship. So what then is hiring? I would simply just say hiring is a process of seeking, evaluating, and employing new talent when a specific job post opens up. Now, I hear a lot of people say hiring and recruitment is the same. Yeah, it's used interchangeably a lot of times, but there are some differences, just a few differences. So when you're looking at hiring, right, most of the time there is a vacant job that needs to be filled. But the recruitment process is an ongoing process. In this case, the talent is an ongoing process that covers the attraction and retention in the organization. So the hiring plan, even before there is a vacant role in the organization, it's part of the recruitment exercise. And then also with hiring, this is triggered by a job vacancy. And most of the time, this is when most external recruiters get involved, right? For recruitment, as I earlier mentioned, is an ongoing exercise. And it is long initiated before the vacancy appears. I already talked about the hiring plan, the the role analysis, the direction of the business. All of this would influence the recruitment process and the recruitment exercise. And then one last thing that I would like to mention here is that most of the time when it comes to hiring, the internal HR team is under pressure to fill the job posts. And that is why we are contacted as the external recruiters, right? There's an urgency to quickly fill a need, right? And then beyond that, most of the time, internal recruiters want to avoid favoritism as much as possible, because when you're recruiting internally, right, and you have a boss who has vested interest or who has personal interest in certain talents, it's hard sometimes to say no to your boss, depending on the environment and depending on the culture of the organization. So, but it's sometimes really hard for an internal talent to reach out to an external recruiter to say, this candidate is mine. Most professionals would not want to do that, right? So this is one of the things that they try to avoid by reaching out to us external recruiters, and to also avoid discrimination, and also to focus on other functions within the HR department. So if the organization would rather focus on other functions like employee relations, other key, I mean, I'm not saying recruitment is not key. Recruitment is a key aspect of the HR unit and function, but sometimes organizations want to narrow down their focus and outsource certain things that would take a lot of time from the other functions, right? And then one of the other reasons is for them to leverage on the expertise of recruiters. Some external recruiters have very good database. They also have good network, people they can quickly contact for certain roles. And then there are other reasons which you can also drop in the chat box so that we can talk more as we proceed. So the hiring process, for the sake of today's conversation, I have categorized it into 4. So we have the planning phase, the initiation phase, the execution phase, and the closure phase, right? So under the planning phase, you have activities that happen before the client contacts the recruiter. So you have the internal hiring team identifying the hiring needs. They also come up with a hiring plan. How are we going to engage these talents? Do we need to contact an external recruiter? Do we need to hire internally? What is the budget? And all of this conversation, right? And then they proceed to build a job description for the role. Now the internal recruiter would work with the hiring manager to ensure that all competencies, requirement that is needed, from the talent to excel on the job is captured on the JD. Now, moving on to the next phase, which is the initiation phase. This is where you then have the client reaching out to the recruiter to say, we want to employ for X number of roles. I will go into detail, as we move along, but let me just touch very quickly on this. And then you have the role clarification exercise. So this exercise takes place between the recruiter and the client. So you want to recruit for this role. Why? And are you trying to why are you trying to fill this role? And what are the things that are required? Because at this point, as a recruiter, you need to decide if this is a job you can execute or not, right? And then you move on to contracting and execution, which has to happen before you kickstart the job. Now, before you kickstart the job, you need to also get the JD, and there are other questions that you have to ask. And I'll tell you how we manage this particular exercise in my organization. Now, moving on to the next phase, which is the execution phase. So this phase, this is where you place the job advert. You move on to screening, to prune down on the CVs, to ensure that you're getting the right talent that are good fits for the role. And then you also have some sort of interview and assessment before you present the candidate. Now, this phase, you must ensure that you close out this phase by getting feedback from the client. So feedback could be, this candidate is a possible candidate. We want to have conversations or, further screen, or this candidate is unsuitable. That feedback you have to get that feedback before you proceed to the closure phase. Now, in the closure phase, you might have another interview with the client. Sometimes we have clients who want to handle the interview themselves. Sometimes they want to do it with the external recruiter, regardless of whatever the client decides to do. As an external recruiter, you have to be there to support the exercise. And I'll show you how you can support your client in closing out the hiring process in this phase. So let's move on. Throughout this phase, throughout all of the phases, you have to remember that you are managing your client, and then you're also managing internal and external talents. So by external talents, I'm referring to the talents, the candidates that you are engaging for your clients. By internal talents, I'm referring to the people you work with. There's certain conversations that you may be privy to with your client that your colleagues may not be privy to. And sometimes when there is delay or when there is a shift from the norm or the regular exercise or the process, that can demotivate your internal talents. So you have to cascade that information, and you also have to keep them, you have to ensure that they're involved in whatever conversation that is taking place with the client. So moving on to the into more details in the initiation phase. Remember I said at the beginning that the client contacts the recruiter and there is clarification about the role. So you can determine if this is something you have the expertise to execute or deliver on, right? And then you move on to contracting. So here, remember one of the popular beliefs when I said the client initiates, the recruiter executes, and the client concludes. Now, we have experienced, I mean, a lot of recruiters, even internal recruiters as well. We have experienced maybe a few times where a process was discontinued. Now, at what stage was this process discontinued? You need to determine, you need to understand. Was it at the initiation phase, at the execution phase, at the planning phase, or at the closure phase? Now, if it is discontinued at the planning or the initiation phase, it is fine, right? Not a lot of work has been done from the recruiter's perspective. Now, if it is also discontinued at the execution phase, not a lot of work too may have been done. But if you've gone through the process of advertising, screening, conducting interviews and assessments, presenting candidates, and then getting feedback from the client to say, these are the candidates we want to proceed with. Now, the next phase is maybe you have little control over that. You can manage, yes, but you have little control over the client's interview phase. Now, when it is discontinued here, depending on the reason, if it's discontinued for a reason that sounds like this, these candidates are unsuitable, that means you have to then source for additional talents, right? But we want to avoid rework as much as possible. And that's why the aspect where the client contacts the recruiter and gives information about the job, there has to be understanding. And if there has to be, if you need to clarify, right, you have to do that. It's very important to understand what is expected of the role before even accepting to proceed. Now, what we do here in our own organization, we've been doing this since 2015, we have a clause that we call a compensation clause. And the percentage differs, right? You can decide whatever you want it to be. It could be 10, it could be 5, it could be 3, whatever the case may be. But we have a compensation clause that covers, that compensates for our efforts, you know, especially after we have executed. And this clause will make it quite known to our clients. We've had very, we've had great relationship with our clients. We've only had one incident that wasn't so great since we started our business in 2015. And when that happened, we had to apply business principle and sentiments, you know, we had to put sentiment aside. But we also have clients who we sometimes go the extra mile to even give certain you know, features that may not even be captured in the, for example, we can replace the talent for free if the talent exits within 6 months, exits within 6 months. So we get a replacement for free within 10 working days. So the client informs us 2 weeks or a month before the talent leaves. But we have certain clients who we can actually do that for, even within 1 year. Even though the contract says within 6 months, we have amazing clients who have just great work culture. And so for such clients who we've had such good and great relationship with, we sometimes go the extra mile. Within a year, we still replace. And so moving on, then you have to get the job description. And here, there's something that we do. We send out a form we call a job requirement, a recruitment requirement form. Now that form would ask certain questions that may not be on the JD. For example, what is the salary range? Now this information we don't communicate to the talent. However, when we are engaging talents, we have an idea of what type of salary they want to earn. Now, if the salary is significantly higher than the salary range that's been proposed by the client, we make a call. Do we proceed with this talent or not? And then also, sometimes the talent may be maybe a great talent, right? Maybe a very good talent. And we go back to the client to say, this talent, yes, is asking for significantly more than what is being offered. But we propose that you meet with the client if there is a possibility that you can increase your budget. So this sort of requirement, this sort of information, you need it. And sometimes you may want to ask about benefits as well, because we have certain talents who would ask you those questions and you don't want to keep going back to the client to say, okay, so what are the benefits, or this role, why is it being filled? We have talents who are bold enough to ask such questions. They will ask questions about, why is the client trying to fill the role at this point? Did someone exit? What is the reason? Is it based on restructuring? So you have to equip yourself with this information. And that's what we do with the recruitment requirements form. So that helps us with additional information to enable and enhance the hiring process. Now, moving on to the execution phase, right? In posting jobs, there are different platforms you can use. You can use your company website. You can use relevant job boards, like we have My Job Magazine, we have Jobberman. You can also use, and so many others. You can also use social media sites like your LinkedIn, official LinkedIn page, Facebook, Instagram, and just whatever is most convenient or you think that is the best platform to advertise your job. And then you also have, you can also get referrals, from people that are quite knowledgeable or known within the industry or within the function. So for example, right, if we have a client that is that wants us to fill the role of an investment relations officer, right? Within our network, we may have somebody who is quite senior and executive, in that function that we can, refer to ask if they have someone they can, refer to the business, someone who has not only the technical skill, but who has the soft skill and would also explain the type of culture that is prevalent in the client's organization. So that gives an idea of the type of people that, your network may want to refer to you. You can also refer to your database. As a recruiter, as you grow in your business, it's very important for you to continue to build a solid database of good talents. So you can use a simple Excel sheet. You can use that, or if that's too much work, you can also categorize the roles just the folders, using your folders to categorize the roles, so you can refer to your database when you have urgent roles to fill. You can also poach talents, right? Some people say poaching is illegal. No, but it is not illegal. Poaching is actually legal. Poaching just means the process of getting a good talent from a competitor's firm. So for example, Maurice Solutions is an HR consulting firm, right? I may want to get a talent from Talent Bureau. Felicia, I won't do that, but I have to use your company as an example.
Don't worry, I know I'm safe.
Of course, I wouldn't do that. So, so getting the talent from Talent Bureau, that's a competitor's company, and I've identified a key talent, and I know that this talent can also fit into the culture of Maurice Solutions. So you can poach, and then you can headhunt. So we do this a lot in my organization. We do a lot of referrals and poaching and headhunting a lot. So you can headhunt. You just in this case, most of the talents are not actively searching. Most of them are also not passively searching. So you may have to do a lot of toasting. Sometimes we even, especially when it's a very senior role, sometimes we can have a lunch or dinner just to talk through the role that is available in the client's organization. So it just depends on the role that you're trying to fill. So the platform that you use will be dependent on so many factors. Could be dependent on the size of the organization, could be dependent on the structure, could be dependent on the level of the role, and it could also be dependent on the pedigree of the organization. So you have to make the call as the recruiter to know what platform that would work best for you. Now, still in the execution phase, in finding talents, right? We're looking at screening resumes and then selection. So interview and assessment. So in screening, you're looking out for talents that have the hard and soft skills. You're not only looking for technical competence, right? You're looking out for people who you know are likely to be a fit culturally, right? So if you have somebody who is quite competent, probably very competent, but an introvert, and the role requires someone who is an extrovert, right? Is the introvert willing to be flexible? Those are the type of questions you want to ask. And if you think the CV is not showing you enough, right? But most recruiters use an automated system, so that to quicken the process, right? And you have so many you can use. There's so many you can use. There's Bamboo HR, especially for small firms. And I know some people also use Google Forms. You just export to Excel and then you prune down, using certain keywords or search words. And before you move them to the next phase, which is the interview and the assessment phase, right? And now in the interview phase, it can either be virtual or in person or both, especially with the new norm right now. A lot of people are conducting virtual interviews. So you have to decide on what works best for you. It can be team or individual. Is the interview being conducted by Felicia alone, or is it Felicia, Paul, and Linda? And then it can also be structured or patterned. In this case, you have preset interviews that you ask all talents. So the number of interviews are the same for all the talents, except you end the interview process beforehand, right? And then you can also have a non-direct interview. In this case, the number of questions, they're not planned ahead, right? You follow the lead of the candidate. So for example, I can say that, let's say I'm a talent in this case, and I say that I am inspired to do a lot based on certain people within my HR space, right? The interviewer may want to follow that question with another question to say, in what way do these people inspire you? For example, just using that as an example. And then you can also ask situational and problem-solving questions. In this case, the talents, they will describe how they will solve a problem. So this is where you find a lot of case studies. If X is Y, then X might, how is then X, Y? Just a lot of case studies would come into play. And then you can also have behavioral interview exercise where the candidate describes how he or she responds to a specific situation. You can also have case studies here as well. So depending on the role, again, depending on the role, and depending on the number of interviews you conduct, you may want to mix some of this interview styles. You may want to use one or two. It just depends on how best you want to fill the role and what you feel is possible for you at the time. So moving on to assessment, and let's not forget that as recruiters, we must conduct interviews, we must conduct, we could conduct assessment, you know, depending on the role. Like I earlier mentioned, if you're poaching, you may not need to, because poaching or headhunting for very senior roles, for an MD role, you have to then decide, do you want to conduct assessment or not? Most very senior professionals may not want to write assessments. You know, it may not really be relevant for them at that level, at the point they've gotten to in their career. So moving on to, so the types of assessments that are, you know, available to us, you have cognitive aptitude assessment. You know, in this case, you're assessing numerical skills, verbal skills, vocabulary, reasoning skills. And then you also have the job knowledge assessment. In this case, you're measuring technical competence. You can also measure the personality type of the talents to determine cultural fit. You can also have the integrity tests to measure a candidate's truthfulness. This they use in the police force. So depending on what you're trying to measure, depending on the role, right? You would then decide what assessment is best for you. We use METL, that's METTL. It's quite robust. You would find cognitive, you would find job knowledge of so many fields. You would also find some personality tests as well. So it's METTL. So just depending on what you're trying to measure, that would then you can pick on the assessment that best fits that. For personality, we have the big 5 personality assessment that you can do. You have the 16 personality, and it's actually free, right? You also have Myers-Briggs, but I think that is paid. So again, there's so many tools, there's so many assessments that we can use. Just pick the one that best suits what you're trying to do, and that would help you identify the skills or the competence that is required for the role. Now, in presenting talent, right? This is where reporting comes into play. In this case, you're presenting technical competence, you're presenting soft skills, you're presenting salary as well, expectation, you're presenting, I mean, when is the person able to resume, so notice period, and certain other things that may be required of the role, right? But you're not just doing this via email or on paper. You have to bring all of this to life. You have to engage the client to explain and clarify when necessary. And again, this phase, I mentioned earlier that you cannot conclude this phase without getting the feedback of the client. It's very important because you want to be there to support the client. Does this fit what you're looking for? The client has to respond to say, this is suitable, we can proceed with this, or this is possible, depending on the language that you use in your organization, or this is not suitable. You know, we do not want to proceed with this talent. Now you move on to the next phase, which is the closure phase, right? And here you conduct another interview. So depending on the client may say, you know what, we trust your judgment for proceeding with maybe candidate one, especially if you have graded, you have, put certain positions first, second, depending on what has been done. But you may have a client that would say, you know what, we want to have our own interview as well. So we can also, do some form of verification before we proceed. And you may also have a client that could say, this interview exercise, we want you to be a part of it. And you may have some that will tell you, you know what, we want to do our own personal verification before we proceed. So depending on the client, whatever the client says, whether they're conducting it by themselves or you're involved, do not hands off. Because you have to get feedback from the client and from the talent, not only to improve your process, but to also support your client. Because there's certain feedback you would get from talent that you may want to give to your client to help with their internal process. Remember, we're not just here as recruiters. We are here to enhance the hiring process. Because if it's just to recruit, there are so many people who do that. So you are there to support your clients, right? You're there to enhance the hiring process to ensure that your client is getting the best value. And not only that, they are also improving their internal process. So after the interview, right? If the client has given feedback on certain talents that are not suitable, you have to please send regret mails, especially when this is not done by the client. Please do this on behalf of the client if it's not done. Remember earlier on, I talked about loyalty, right? And I did mention that loyalty comes from how the talent, sometimes it can come from how the talent experiences the process, So do not forget that, especially when a talent has gone through the hiring process of being, they've been interviewed, maybe once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and then they don't even get any feedback to say, we're not proceeding, we're sorry. I don't think that's fair. So even when the client doesn't do it, as a recruiter, you should support the client by sending out regret emails. And then for the candidate that has been chosen, sometimes the client handle the communication themselves. Sometimes it is communicated to the recruiter. So regardless of how that is managed, as a recruiter, you send a congratulatory email to the candidate that has been selected, and if the candidate accepts the offer, then, then there is a match, right? So, but I'd like to talk more on the job offer in this case. I had mentioned that sometimes it is done directly by the client and sometimes by the recruiter, right? We have had a situation where the talent reached out to us to complain about certain clauses. Now, I don't know why some talents are not comfortable to voice out, certain concerns, to the internal recruiters. I don't know why, but sometimes they come to us to say, we have concerns about some of these clauses, and we clarify, right? And most of the time, the concerns are actually not, they're nothing to, for them to be worried about. They just need clarification. And if there's no one there to give them that clarification, they reject the offer, So we don't want our client to miss out on a good talent. We don't want our client to miss out on a good talent. That's why we try to support until the end, support the process until the end. And we remember when I said client management and talent management, that continues until the client resumes. And even after resumption, right, you should check in to know how the talent is doing, right? Check in maybe some weeks after just to find out how they're doing on the job and how things are going. Sometimes the transition process can be difficult, right? You want to offer as much support as you can, because remember, if the talent leaves within a set period of time, you have to start the process all over again. So rework, you have to avoid that by ensuring that you keep managing both client and talent. Yes, I want to talk on salary and benefits. So we have certain talents who sometimes will say, the salary, maybe I want to change my mind. I don't know if this has happened to someone else in the house. They'll say probably they want to change their mind because the salary, even though they had told you what they wanted, right? They sometimes will come back and say the salary is still not enough, because now they are thinking deeply about it, and they know that moving to a new environment would, the first 3 to 6 months would be exhausting and, we require a lot from them. Sometimes they just need someone to talk to. Just talk them through the process, give them the encouragement that you can. If the concerns are things that they may not be able to get past, then you can advise that they do not accept the job, because the interest of your clients is very important. Again, you don't want someone who will join the client, disrupt the system, and then leave within 3 months. So you have to continue to support the process as much as you can. So now let's talk about background verification. Now, for the external recruiter, sometimes this is optional. If this is a responsibility that has been given to you, then you execute. Otherwise, if it is supposed to be done internally, we please, I'm saying we in this case, remind the client to do this. Let me tell you the importance of checking. And this figures I got from SHRM. 40% of applicants lie about work histories and educational backgrounds. 20% of applicants falsify credentials and licenses. And then 30% of applicants make misrepresentations on their resumes. Now, even when this service hasn't been given to you as a recruiter, right? There are ways that we can still support our client. There are certain things that can be done to help the client get talent who are what they actually say they are. So one of the things that we do, so this is from personal experience, one of the things that we do is we look at the talent's LinkedIn profile. So we conduct like preliminary checks. I'll call them. So we look at the talent's LinkedIn profile. So if Felicia, on her CV, Felicia has project manager, past experiences also show maybe project officer. I want to go to Felicia's LinkedIn page to verify that information. And if I see finance manager and nothing points to project, in this case, there's a mismatch. Now, if this talent's profile really stands out, we may want to engage to understand why there is a mismatch. But most of the time, you don't want to proceed because this could be even an integrity issue, right? So, but if there are certain roles that are quite closely related, maybe that could be understandable. But project manager, not on finance projects, and then you have finance manager. Sometimes talents align their resumes to certain roles, especially when they are desperate, but they forget to go and change their LinkedIn profile. You cannot keep changing your LinkedIn profile for every role that you're applying for. I mean, it's almost not, it's not realistic, right? So this is one way that we support the client in checking. Another way is for the falsification of work history, we do like a preliminary checks as well. So if I'm talking to Paul and Felicia is probably not the MD, Felicia is my friend in Talent Bureau, right? I don't necessarily have to tell Felicia that I want to employ Paul, right? Because you have to protect the interest of Paul, right? You don't need to let Paul's employer or colleagues know that Paul is applying, is looking out. That would not be fair. But I can call Felicia as my friend to say, I mean, how is Paul? There's someone that works with you. How is he in terms of attitude, and how is he in terms of competence? How does he do his job? There's a way you can frame the things you're saying that would not, affect Paul's current employment. That is very important. So we do this. And then the case of talents leaving within 3 to 6 months, you should be able to replace at no cost. Now, before that replacement is done, please ensure that you have an interview with the talent, because sometimes the talent may just want to leave because of maybe the talent feels he or she is not being supported as much as, is not being given the needed support. Sometimes we have people who are great talents, but they become anxious, or they become scared. I don't know, for different reasons, right? So you want to talk to the talent, and you want to also speak to the client to see if there's anything that can be done to manage that. And then also, you want to understand if there are ways to improve your process as well, or if there's anything that is being communicated about the client's culture, so you can also communicate that to your clients. Remember, you're looking at this relationship as a long-term relationship. Now, one of the recruitment issues that we face is rework, especially for recruiters, whether you're an internal recruiter or an external recruiter. One of the ways you can avoid this is clarification of requirements that I talked about earlier on, right? So beyond what is on the JD, there are other things you may need to ask about. So salary range, for example. Otherwise, you send in talents who are, for example, a talent may be asking for 40 million, for example, and then the client's budget is 10 million. And at the point of, giving the job offer, the client says, at the point of interviewing, the client then says, oh no, this candidate is already earning, or is asking for 40 million and the budget is 10 million. So that information, you're not getting it to communicate to the talent. That's not what you're trying to do. That information is just to help with the search, to help with the process, and to avoid rework as much as possible. There are other information that you may also need to get, right? It is role gender specific, male, female. You're not putting that on the JD, but you just need it only for diversity purpose, not for, not bias or something that is doesn't improve the process. So this is very important for you to avoid rework. And then I also talked about the process discontinuation. So determine what phase is being discontinued. Is it the planning phase, the initiation phase, the execution phase, or the closure phase? And support the client in however you can. Right, in our own case, I talked about the compensation clause. Sometimes we have clients who would say, okay, can we renegotiate this? Can we reduce this? Long-term relationship, right? There are certain concessions that you would give your client, and there are certain concessions your client would give you as well. And where necessary, you apply the agreement. Now, let's talk about client relationship, because this is very important for you to grow the business, for you to also support your client, and for you to also help your client improve their process, right? One of the things that has helped our business is that we see, just like we see the talent as a potential partner, we also see the client as a business partner, right? The client is an important stakeholder in our business, right? The moment you begin to think of the client as such, the shift begins to happen. The shift begins to happen. And am I still on, Felicia?
You're still on.
on.
You're
Okay.
on.
Okay, I'm wrapping up. Yes, I'm wrapping up. Awesome. So yes, so you begin, I mean, when you begin to see the client as a business partner, that shift helps you to manage the relationship better, right? And there are certain things that you can do. Right now, Felicia is offering this training for free. And I'm sure you have some of your clients on this call. You're offering a freemium service. So this is freemium, double E, please. So you're offering a freemium service just as a way to appreciate and to help improve the process of your clients, right? So it's not all the time you are expecting to collect from your clients. There are times you should also give, right? Because you have services that you're being paid for, right? So if you're going to do if you're going to render a service and it doesn't take so much from you, and you can do it for free, sometimes you can, like Felicia is doing right now with the training, right? And consistently offer quality service. Always engage your client on how best you can serve them, right? There's this client that I know typically when I'm giving presentations, I try as much as I can not to mention names of clients. But there's this client that we love so much. We love all our clients, right? But this particular client, through them, we've gotten about 3 other solid clients over the years. And their work culture is just amazing. Working with them has just been amazing. And that's African Capital Alliance. Their work culture is great. And they beyond the official communication that we do, we also have personal interaction. So if there's anything that we need to clarify, we do that in that personal conversation. If there are certain things that, you know, we cannot get maybe on the JD or through emails, but we just have that rapport. The point I'm trying to make is that we have that rapport, and you may not always have such rapport with all your clients. You need to remember that. For example, the other clients they have referred us to were in a different phase of relationship with them from ACA. So recognize the various phases of relationship and know how best to manage. So for example, there are certain clients that maybe you have really built a solid personal relationship with that would accept certain things, right? Maybe calls by 10 p.m., they could appreciate it. But there are certain clients who may not, especially if you've not formed that sort of personal relationship. So understand the various phases of the relationship and know how best to manage the relationship, nurture the relationship, and support your clients. I keep talking about support because it's very important to be supportive throughout the process. However, understand when there's a mismatch between the recruiter and the client, recognize it. There are times where you may have someone come in to request for certain things that conflicts with your values, certain things that may be unethical, right? Or maybe not maybe necessarily unethical, maybe it conflicts with your values. You can refer maybe an individual or freelance recruiter, you know, you may be able to refer somebody who can also render such help, but you need to recognize when there's a mismatch and know when not to solidify that relationship. So at this point, I would like us to let's talk. So thank you, Felicia. I'm looking forward to hearing from the audience and just sharing more.
Thank you, Linda. That was a class, and that is a master class. That is like a management class. So everybody here, I'm sure people have taken notes, and you've touched deeper than we even expected. We thought you were just going to say, you know, you really lectured us. So now we know why you had a first class. Paul, do you have anything to say, or should we'll have to just go into the Q&A session? Yes, go on.
All right, so we'll be having a Q&A session after now, but I think before we go into Q&A session, I will let Ms. Odumosu she has some slides to share with us. So I will let her go through that for a few minutes so we can take all of the questions together. So
Yeah,
we
we
don't
can. Yes,
exceed
yes, we
our
can take the
time.
questions. We can take the
Together.
questions as we go on
Yes,
now. Yes.
definitely.
So
So
let's start with the question, and I'll answer with the slide. So let's take the
okay,
Q&A. Yeah.
okay, great then. All right, so I have some questions here. So let me quickly start with what I have here. One of the questions that came in, and
Okay.
can you hear me? Okay, great. All right. I can see you smiling. Okay, let's see what's coming. All right, great. All right, so somebody said, how do you manage difficult clients who proves to be intellectual or strict?
How do you manage difficult clients who what?
Who prove to be intellectual or strict?
Or strict? Your client is your customer, just remember that. Your client is your customer. How do you manage a difficult client? I think sometimes the difficulty comes from misunderstanding most of the time. You want to understand what it is that is influencing the behavior of the client. Is the client being difficult because they enjoy being difficult, or there's a reason for maybe the dissatisfaction or the displeasure that they're expressing? You may want to understand, have a conversation to understand the why, and then know that's the only way you would know how best to manage the relationship. So, for example, if you have a client, so when you say client being difficult, sometimes it could be the client wants to have meetings on a Saturday. I don't know if that forms some form of difficulty. Whoever it is that asks the question, if they can give more context, that would be helpful. But most importantly, you want to understand what it is that is influencing the attitude of the client. So you can then devise a solution or a means or a way to manage the difficulty.
So Linda, did you sneak into my slides? Did you get, because I was just going to say, understand your client's needs. So either from the recruiter's perspective.
Recruiters think alike.
So either from the perspective of the client or the perspective of a hiring manager, or you that is trying to hire, you just need to understand the needs.
Definitely.
Are you hiring because you just feel like hiring, or is there a particular role that needs to be filled? Like you need a customer service person to handle customers, or you need a CFO, or you need an accountant. You need to understand what those needs are and not just hire. But otherwise, you would hire, and after you'll be wondering, I didn't really have a need for this particular mentor. So that's why issues come up. And then what are the must-haves? You need to be able to prioritize, know what exactly is urgent, what is not urgent. For example, you have 10 roles to fill. We've had clients who come to say, we have 60 roles to fill. We tell them, you know what, we need to take it in phases. You're a startup. So the CFO, the head of accounting, the GM positions, you need to put on the side and start with maybe customer service, receptionist, and some other roles that you'd grow along with. So I think we've answered that question. We can continue to take the question.
Awesome. Thank you, Felicia, for that contribution.
All right, great then. Great. So I think, okay, she will just be sharing her slides as she contribute and all of that. So we don't take too much time on that. So that's great. Okay, so okay, I have some questions here. Let me just quickly read through them. Okay, just a second, please. Okay, usually we're not okay, great. All right. Okay, somebody is saying that sometimes, can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. Yes.
Sometimes sending out regret mails is tricky because the client may come back to select a previously rejected candidate. How do you undo that?
That's a very good question. And I'm sure it's coming from a recruiter. That's a question from a recruiter. For me, yes, it is. So, yes, it can be tricky. You can only forward emails when you have gotten feedback from the client to say, we are not proceeding with this talent. And that communication doesn't necessarily mean that in the future, the clients cannot come back to say, this talent, yes, was not necessarily the best fit for this role, but we have another role that could be, right? So the regret email should only go out when you have gotten feedback, official feedback from the client, that this is we're going with talent A and not talent B. So basically, the role must have been closed out before you send out regret emails to other talents. Now, even after you've sent out regret emails, if the client comes back to say, we have another role, we want to employ maybe talent C or talent B. We feel that talent B will be great for this role. You initiate the conversation. You initiate the conversation. Regret email does not mean, remember I said, think of talent potential partners. Regret email doesn't mean you're closing that relationship. It's a continuous relationship. You can go back to a talent even for another client, right? But just not communicating or not saying anything to a talent after the role has been concluded and the talent has resumed is not really fair.
Okay. Thank you. Raising up her hand, but before I give her the chance to
Okay. Chinwe's hand is raised. I think she
question sign.
wants to speak. Chinwe's hand.
Yeah, if before the question, before I call her to ask a question, ask is that, for example, you in
Oh, you're breaking up. We can't hear you.
at your back. Oh, can you hear me?
It's going on and off. Your
Well, can you hear me now? Can you hear me
Yes.
now?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. So let's assume a client the client told you that this particular person is not suitable for the role, and the person has been rejected. Quite all right. Then you send the rejection email. Then the client at your back go to the candidate to take him the person. So how do you handle that? I think that's what the person is also trying to reiterate or something.
Okay, in this case, after you've sent regret email, the client now goes behind you and contacts the candidate.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I understand the situation because I've had conversations on this matter with different recruiters. So there are different ways to look at this. The first one is this. The client has concluded with talent A and has given an offer, you're aware, right? So you then send regret emails to talents B, C, and D, for example. In this case, if the client goes back to then contact talent B for another role without your knowledge, sometimes you may not know, especially when you have not been contacted. Sometimes we stay in communication with the talents, but it's hard to keep calling all the talents in your pool, to be in constant communication with all of them. So I think we should go into a relationship with our clients with a mindset that we will be fair to our clients and our clients will be fair to us. If possible, let's try and build a relationship outside the business relationship so that somehow, there's something people call emotional blackmail, but don't use it in a bad way. But you want to appeal to the conscience of your clients based on the type of relationship you have built with them. Imagine that Felicia is working with GE. She's my friend. Do you think Felicia wouldn't want to protect my interests? She will. So ensure that every client or every organization you're working with have one person that is in a position of influence that is a friend. Yes, the person will protect your interest. That's one way to manage it.
All right, great. Let me quickly call Chinwe. Chinwe, can you unmute yourself for a minute or two?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Chinwe.
Okay, yeah, hi. I'd wanted to make a contribution with regards to the last question, but the question was rephrased, but let me still add to what I wanted to say then, to what you had said earlier. You had mentioned about the regret mail. So at that instance, when the question was asked, it was asked that what if the client comes back? So I wanted to say that I think maybe the way that we can restructure the mails as recruiters can also help. So we are saying oh, at this point that we will not be proceeding with your application. However, we will have your resume with us. You know, we are keeping it in view. Should we have anything that, or should we have any further instruction to proceed? Yes. Or should we have anything that matches your qualification in the near future? We'll contact you. So that way, if we are going back to that person, so there can be other excuses or other explanation that we can now put to it. It can be that the client suspended the role before now, and then it's been lifted and you a match, or the person that the client was considering, he wasn't successful, you were the next best candidate or something like that. So thank you.
Chinwe, that's a very good contribution from you. Very important. So the regret email we send out, remember, as a recruiting company, you may even have a different role in another client's premises. So the clause should take that into consideration, right? In the future, a role within the client or even outside, you know, in another client's organization comes up, you may reach out. So a clause that covers that. So that's a very good contribution from Chinwe. There's a private question from Fumi directly to me. I think, Felicia, can I please take this before we move on?
Yes, please, take it, please.
So Fumi asked the question, what's the difference between poaching and headhunting? Sometimes I'm not sure which it is. Yes, sometimes it can be confusing as well, yeah? So with poaching, you are getting a talent that has been identified as great in a competitor's organization. So for example, I don't want to mention, okay, so for example, you have your client's industry is maybe financial services, maybe investment, financial services, but investments, you know, and there's a talent in that space that is an amazing talent, and the talent works in your client's competition firm, a competitive firm. Then you're going to poach that talent. That's poaching. I don't know if that's clear. That's poaching. But when you're talking about headhunting is very, most times for highly specialized roles and very senior roles, and majorly people who they're not really looking for jobs. They're not looking for jobs, right? Regardless of where they work, it can be in a competitor's company, it can be in any firm at all, it can be in any company. You're just engaging talents that are highly skilled for a certain role. That's headhunting. And most times the talents they're not even searching. Their CVs are not out there. They're not searching at all, but you're going to engage them to consider applying for a certain role. So that's headhunting. That's the difference between the two.
Thank you very much, Nina.
Yeah, thank you so much. So Oluwafumila, do you want to say something? You have just 30 seconds, please. Let's hear from you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Oh, sorry. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
All right. So I think my question on rejection emails, probably maybe you didn't understand the angle I was coming from. So the scenario here was the night before, after the interview had been concluded, the client reached out and said, oh, I need you to send reject emails right away and all of that, you know, and it was on a Friday night. So I didn't want to spoil the candidate's weekend. So internally, I just felt, you know what, I'm going to send it on Monday evening so that whatever it is, you know, the guy is probably stressed out by work and all of that. So he's waking up on Tuesday, a different person. He's just like, okay, better things will come and all. So I decided to hold off of my own volition. Now, the client calls on Saturday morning and is like, I hope you've not sent the mail. Actually, I feel like the guy did better than so and so and so. And I'm like, okay, so what do you want now? Yeah, you know what, we'll send him an offer letter right now. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, there are a lot of clients that do this. In fact, there's one person that was outrightly rejected, reached out to me, I think last week, and was telling me that he was recalled for another session of interviews and he's wondering what's going on. And I'm like, the client didn't tell me anything. So what am I supposed to tell this guy? So, yeah.
So, yes, I understand, Fumi, and as a recruiter, I can relate to that situation. So one way that I think is the best way to handle this would be communications, we can wait, especially for regret email, we can wait after we have closed out on the role. So we've closed out talent, the client has identified Chinwe as the talent, you know, and then the client has given the go ahead to contact Linda, Felicia, and Fumi, right? But the role has been closed out. We've closed out on the process, and Chinwe has been identified as a talent, you know, and the job offer given. So for regret emails, we can delay, especially when they've gone through the interviewing, right? But yes, I think that's one way. But even if, let's assume that there's a situation where after Chinwe has been employed, client C comes back to you and say, now I want talent B, who is Felicia, for example. You can still go back to Felicia. Remember that the email, remember what Chinwe advised, that the email can have a clause that gives you room to initiate conversations. Because as recruiters, we can always reinitiate conversations, even if it's not for that client, it could be for another client. Yeah. So there should be a clause. I can send to you, Fumi, what our regret email look like. I can share that with you. It has that clause. So you can also reinitiate the conversation. So those are two ways that you can handle.
Thank you so much, Linda. We need to move quickly. So I'll just go through my slides, about 4 more. Another thing we can do, based on the questions we received, we decided to come up with these slides to answer and address those questions. Build a pool of potential candidates. And how do you do this? It's just called the talent pipeline. Make a plan. You know how you scrub pots and how you score with sponge, iron sponge. Ensure that you are prepared, you have the right resource before the roles come up, and then begin to engage them, maybe send them emails, send them to fill some forms that some roles are coming up. We're not promising you 1 month from now, but just to prepare you, do a research on this. That way you'll be able to engage them and then begin to assess their skills on your own to prepare them for upcoming roles. And then you also can use video interviews. We talked about it this yesterday. It will save time, money, and enable you to engage potential candidates via interviews so that they can move through your recruitment process quickly. It also helps you engage candidates quicker rather than trying to reach them via phone and their phones are not going through. Just tell them to send 1-minute video or 2-minute videos about themselves so that before they meet with the client, you have reviewed the videos, the client also reviews the video, you're not interviewing for 6 months and waiting for feedback. And then talent relationship management is just what we call building candidate relationships, recruiting and networking with them, onboarding them, transforming their experience most of the time. So it involves creating a relationship that would enable them to know that, look, we're going to hire you. We believe in you. It's just like customer relationship management. They're your customers. So it does not just refer to software or solutions or systems that are put in place. It also facilitates your hiring process. So at the end of it all, you also need to evaluate your hiring process. What is the cost per hire? Applicant volume, how many have I been able to fill? How many roles have I been able to fill? How long did it take me to fill the role? What's the quality of the candidates that I get from LinkedIn, from Jobberman, from all the job boards? And then you want to know what is the return on investment at the end of the day to either your clients or to you. And then you want to know how long they stay when they're hired. You want to know their attitudes. We put up a post last week talking about hire for attitude, not for skill. Skills are necessary, but you need to know the kind of attitude which involves soft skills and all. So you also need to rate turnover. When they come on board, how long does it take for them to stay with the organization? So we've been able to run through everything we need to run through in such little amount of time. So Paul, I hand over to you so that we can wrap up. We don't want to go beyond 1:30.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I know if I give you the time, you will go through that in detail, but you are a person of your time. You always watch time. When you give people time, you want to work on that. Thank you so much for that. All right. So thank you so much as well, Linda Uneze, our guest speaker. I can see you sipping something. I think I should get mine too, but there's nothing here.
Coffee.
Anyway.
Coffee is life.
There's one question, Paul, before we go.
Yeah, I was going to go there too. Okay, great. So somebody is asking about the charges. Olufunka is saying, could you kindly speak to agent charges? Are there industry rates to be mindful of? Thanks.
Yes. So as we have seen, a lot of recruiters charge 10% most of the time. That's like the average percentage. So 10% on the talents, the higher talents annual gross fee. So that's the average. You can decide to go above or below depending on you. Sometimes we do 10%, sometimes we do 7%. We have clients who have, a lot of roles to fill. If they're coming with like 10 roles, 15 roles, for example, those number, we sometimes can go slightly below. But if it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, we stick to 10%, which is the average standard most of the time. But for headhunting, you can actually go above 10%. For headhunting, you can go above 10%. You can go as high as 20%. Because headhunting, remember I mentioned earlier that most of the time the talents are not even actively searching. So what you're going to become is a professional toaster. You're trying to convince the talent to actually apply for a particular role, send their profile. Sometimes you may need to meet them, have dinner, have lunch. You're basically trying to toast the talent. So in this case, you may want to go above 10%.
Awesome. I like that word, like you are toasting, and that's the word. You're wooing the person. When you are trying to woo a woman or a woman win a man, whichever way. The word is now, we're not living in a strange world these days, All right. Okay. So thank you so much. I think we don't have any more questions as to that. So if you learned a lot in this session, please drop some fire, drop your emoji in the chat box. I want to see them before we end this session. I want to be sure we learned something. Just drop your fire, drop your thank you. Chinwe is laughing at me. Come on. It's true. It's the truth. We're not living a very, all right. So there is a particular form I want to share with us. I want to share a form with us. It's a feedback form. I want us to fill the form and let us know what you think about this particular training, day 1, day 2, what you think. I would like to share it now. My camera can go off, pardon me, just to share the form with you. I'm still here. All right. Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm here now. So I will be sharing the form. The link is here. You can copy it, put it somewhere. Just copy the link, drop it somewhere, and help us fill the form. So we can as well get. Thank you so much for that. So we can actually as well get your feedback. One of the things we do as recruiters is that we don't just recruit. We want to get feedback. And it helps you to also other client as well. So feedback is something that is very, very key. Even candidates, they want feedback. What's up with the role? Am I going ahead with it? I have people who message me on LinkedIn almost every now and then. Mr. Paul, please, what's up with the role? What's going on? And I have to manage them well. I have to maintain the good communication skill. Like our guest speaker said, she talked about, and Mr. Dumus also talked about it. Talent relationship management. You need to understand how to manage them. There are times that employers will come to you and they will suspend the role. Not that they won't resume it again, they will suspend it. But candidates don't understand that. They can feel frustrated. Why are you wasting my time? So you must learn how to also manage them, keep the conversation going. Let me just share one. There was a time a client came to us and actually, I think the person said, this person is not good, it's not good. And the person was, we forgot about the person, in quote. But we maintained good relationship with the person. We were together with the person every now and then. How you doing? What's up with you? Beyond. And funny enough, this person was employed. And I didn't know about it. So we're like, whoa. And I asked him,
that's
of the relationship. Yeah. Because of the relationship we had with the person was able to let us know what's going on. If not that, we won't know. You understand? So, like, I want to say this is a very wonderful session we had today. So if you like, somebody was asking if you want, like the person said he or she wants the video, the recording. We'll get back to you on that. If the video will be made available, the recording will be made available or not. We'll get back to you on that. All right. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really, we got so much value, and this is one of the ways where at We Talent Bureau help other firms, recruiting bodies, HR professionals to be the best at what they do. Do you understand? So like I said earlier, we are big on support over competition. It's the word is like we say, the sky is so big, it's so wide for the bird to fly. We have millions of birds in the world. Do you understand?
Thank you, Paul. We can go on and on and on, and we won't go home.
You know me. All right.
Thank you, Linda. Linda really engaged us. We're happy we came.
Yes,
thank you for everything. We'll try and post a few snippets online. If possible, post everything on YouTube. But thank you, everyone, for showing up. We appreciate you and have a wonderful weekend.
So I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who attended. It was a great time. And thank you, Felicia. You're doing amazing. Thanks for the opportunity. And let's just enjoy the rest of our day. Thank you.
All right. So if you want the video, please just send us a DM on Instagram or on our LinkedIn. We can also if you want more information, we can also engage you on that. Thank you very much for that. Thank you so much. I can see the comment. That's it. So bye-bye, everyone.